Thank you all for tuning in. The following is a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch III, coming to you live from the Palatial Home Studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Malden, Missouri. And joining me from more than acceptable safe social distances are my guests for today. We have Teresa Greco and Todd. Wait a minute. I wrote down your last name. Crandell. Todd Crandell or Crandell?
Crandell.
Crandell. Okay. So no fancy accent mark there.
No.
Well, I always start the show with the same question. Who are you reading? And so, because I'm not afraid to be sexist, I'll say ladies first. And Teresa, who are you reading right now?
Thank you. So I am reading Michael Singer. I don't know if you're familiar with The Untethered Soul. It was one of his best-selling books. And so he has a couple other ones. And so this is the one I'm reading is Living Untethered. So it is a spiritual book. Where it speaks about your spiritual self in addition to the other aspects of yourself. And how do you live as a spiritual being having a human experience? That's what I believe that I'm doing. I believe we're all doing that, but I know that I'm doing that. And so this book really allows you to live from that perspective.
I can totally see that. That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna have to when I get a chance. I've got such a long book list. It's ridiculous. I'm going to school right now. I'm in seminary actually, and so I have to read a lot of textbooks. Yeah, it's a slightly different kind of program. There's a lot of business and leadership and those kind and journalism courses that I can take in this program because it's called Marketplace Ministry, and it's a focus to get to people in the marketplace as opposed to in the church building. And so there's a different kind of it's a shifted focus, but definitely a lot about how we are spiritual beings in a human experience. Just in different words. So yeah, so that's
words.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Todd, how about you? Who are you reading?
I'm reading a myriad of books. I'm reading Bono's book from U2. It's just very
his
interesting.
Birthday's this weekend.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like 64, I think.
Reading his. I don't know the author to this. I'm reading a lot of books recently and Teresa brought this up, on spirituality, but from a money perspective. Now, I don't want the listener to think, oh, it's all about money. It's when they say money, yes, there's a financial aspect to it, but it's more about the emotions, the intellect, and the spirituality, and the why money is of value and how we could use it for service, and accepting that it's okay. Being in a nonprofit world, sometimes when you hear you're making money, people can take it as, well, you shouldn't do that. And the line of work that I'm in, making money is essential because that's how we provide the best services. Reading a little rock and roll music stuff. And then as always, I'm always trying to improve myself physically, spiritually, financially, emotionally. So I read a myriad of things at the same time that kind of go back and forth between those two things.
Wow. It's really a small world, Mom. At the church I go to, at the church I attend, my pastor this last Sunday preached on finances and the parable of the dishonest manager, and exactly that we're supposed to use our money for a mission. It's not about how much you can give to God because God owns it all already, and you have to be responsible with it and do outreach and think about. It's like, how can I serve my fellow human beings? And about how uncomfortable people get when you start talking about finances, especially in church. So yes. Totally, totally dig on that.
Money is just energy, right? So there's a constant flow of like in and out. Yeah. And I think people get uncomfortable around it because they don't see it as that. as energy, that everything in the universe is energy. So it's important that there is this constant flow of money going out so that money can also flow in, and then using the money for good things as well. And so even I've had to like look at my upbringing and the messaging around money, that money doesn't grow on trees. And so that it's very, very hard to come by, and that you have to work really, really hard. That money is the root of all evil. Like there's a whole bunch of like different sayings and thought systems around money. And so a lot of that kind of spiritual work really allows you to dive in deep around looking at some of the programming that we've been exposed to around money, and understanding that it's not a lot of those things, that it is just energy in this constant flow.
Teresa, it's amazing hearing you speak some of that. I just read about the ebb and flow of money and they use the word energy. I just read that this morning. And some of the other things in that is a lot of the views that we have on money is how we were raised. That, oh, you have to work hard and money's bad. And it's like, well, no, it's not. And it's not about working hard. It's about working smart. And again, as we all three are concurring, it's just doing the right thing with it. Then it's really just a nice little journey of having it, because I don't know why people are so worked up over this subject. We need money to make the world go around. That's just, that's the way it is. But again, if you're doing it for the right reasons and for the good of people, go out and make as much as you can. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. If we go back to the Bible, you mentioned that money is the root of all evil. The Bible actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. Not that money is the root of all evil. And while we do have the example of the rich young ruler who couldn't give up, who Jesus told, sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and he couldn't do that. But on the other hand, Jesus was friends with Lazarus, who was a wealthy person, or at least reasonably so, who supported his ministry financially. He was doing good with his money. He wasn't attached to it as the rich young ruler was. It's like, I can take it or leave it. He was best serving the mission by making more money and using it to support the mission financially. And it's like we don't. There's that disconnect because we don't think about that. We think about, oh, well, Jesus was poor and so we have to be poor. And it's like, no, Jesus had rich friends. And if that's what you're called to do, then if that's where your gifts lie is in making money, then do that. And if part of that, and if part of your honest income is, because you got to make sure that you're honest about it. You don't want to hide, especially in the nonprofit sector, you don't want to hide where the money's going. You don't want to have your people all eating bread and water and eating prime rib, kind of things. But there's nothing wrong with you using the money to have a comfortable life. I mean, that's, there's nothing wrong with that at all. As long as you're being honest about it and that you're doing the right thing that you're called to do.
I think part of Jesus's message was also understanding that, again, we are spirit first. We are our God self first, the infinite eternal part of ourselves, and that we are only here for a limited amount of time, and that our identity is not our stuff, right? My personality, all of the education that I have and certificates and job experience and material things and all of those things that we feel make us who we are is not actually who we are. And so Jesus very much talks about not being attached to that, because our the true essence of who we are is none of those things. So it should be very easy for us to be able to let go, because our identity, the truth of who we are, the essence of who we are, isn't any of those things. And that when you use those things as a means to an end, to doing God's work on the planet and serving our Creator by using those means, then of course sometimes we're going to need more of that in order to serve God, doing the good work that we're doing. So I think that was also part of like that message, and that person wasn't able to do that because people are so tied to their things. But with all the work that I do on happiness, that I believe happiness is an innate quality of our spiritual self, that when you know that that's the essence of who you really are, then all of those other things don't hold the same importance as they once did when I was just living the human experience.
Right. You know, it's
said.
funny. So many people would probably, if I took that as a clip to put out on, as a short or a reel or something, or put it on TikTok, most people would probably, out of context with the rest of the conversation, would probably assume you were talking about Buddhism, because it very much sounds like taking the middle path and being detached from things of this earth, and giving up those things. But it really is very much a Christian philosophy as well, because we are to be detached from this material world, because we are only here for a short time, and it's getting shorter. But I've got the gray hairs to prove it. But yeah, that's definitely was well said, and yeah, we could probably talk about that. You also reminded me of something Paul said, and it won't be an exact quote because I'm horrible about that. Where he talks about being content in all things, regardless of his circumstances, whether he's in want and need or whether he has plenty. It's about being content with what you have. It's not the denial of wanting more, because that's how we advance this world of ours. I mean, the farmer who went from digging up his soil by hand to having a plow, to having it pulled by a horse, to having it pulled by a motor, that advanced us and got us to the point where we are in our food production. So wanting more is not bad either, but not being attached to that want, not being stuck in it to the exclusion of all else is definitely a bad thing. We need to I think people need to learn to be content in what they have, to get to that spiritual center, the creamy, gooey spiritual center.
I would love to add on that by saying that gratitude is a big component of that, right? Gratitude allows us to be content with what we have, instead of always being discontent with what we don't yet have. And so gratitude helps us to remember that which we have now in the present moment, which is often so many beautiful and wonderful things that people in other parts of this planet don't have access to, that people are still, trekking hours for clean water, and they don't have electricity in their homes. And a lot of us don't even have an understanding of that because we live in like first world countries. But when you speak to people from other parts of the world and you watch the news and whatnot, you realize that there's a lot of things that we take for granted, and we don't focus on those things. And so one of the biggest ways that we can tap into our happiness is through gratitude, and tapping into like what you said, that, not looking at things from the perspective of lack, but actually from the perspective of abundance and all of the things that we do have. And focusing on that. And that actually then just lets the universe know that you're happy with all those things. And then you're just like, oh, those are the things that you like. Let me shower you with more and more and more of that. And so it just invites more of that energy that you're grateful for to come to you as well.
I got sober over 3 decades ago, and I've lived my life ever since on 3 words, which are empathy, humility, and gratitude. And it's interesting when most people, when you talk about gratitude, you'll hear conversations that are involving materialistic or financial things, which I hear that, but it's more of, I'm grateful I woke up and I can breathe today.
Mhm.
or, that I have clean air, I have clean water, I can see, I can think, I can feel. That's the true essence of gratitude. When we're talking about being grateful for the things we have, I
Mhm.
understand that, but I think
Yeah.
we're missing a little bit of the point of what being grateful is really
Yeah.
about.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's so beautiful. I actually did a 30-day gratitude program where every day we focused on a different aspect of our life and diving deep. And it's just 5 minutes. So it's like 5 minutes of gratitude in the morning, has a whole bunch of physical, mental, emotional benefits, spiritual, of course, to doing it for just 5 minutes. So when we spend 5 minutes in the morning, it actually helps our body to release 1,400 biochemicals that actually last 6 hours in the body, that sends your day off to like an amazing start. And so I don't have a practice because I now do it all day long. So when I first started doing like focusing on gratitude over 10 years ago, it was like me journaling and me being very intentional about setting a time to do it. But now it's just all day long. I'm just so thankful. Like I'm so thankful for being here and having this time with you and to discuss these concepts. So it's just really an all day thing. It was when you focus on, so one of the days, for example, was family, and it was like and then there were 3 days. So I have, there's my husband and my two children. So one day was just on my partner and all the things that I appreciate. But so it wasn't just like, oh, I'm thankful for my husband. No, it was like, what were the very individual things that I'm thankful about him? So I'm thankful that sometimes he calls me, quite often actually, on the phone and says, can I grab you a tea? Can I grab you a coffee before coming home? Or, can I grab anything from the grocery store for you? Or, he's very funny. So it's like, I appreciate his humor. And so there was all these different things that I appreciate the fact that he puts his laundry like in the dirty basket. And I appreciate that he's not like messy and sloppy with his things. And so it's so beautiful to actually go into like the intricate aspects of what you like about someone. And it's not about the money, right? None of those things have anything to do with money, but it has to do with more like his personality. It's the same thing about nature. Like, okay, yes, I'm thankful for like my house, but what exactly are you thankful for? And when you really pick apart all of them, you're able to realize that there's very small things that we overlook, but those things bring us so much joy when we realize that they're present in our life and we realize that we're more abundant than we actually thought.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a beautiful
As
month. It was a
as
beautiful month. I can recommend the book to you guys afterwards. It's a great program.
Yeah, yeah. As viewers and listeners of the show know, I personally struggle with major depression, and one of the things that helped get me to a level and helps me get there, stay there, is writing a gratitude list. I don't do it every day because I don't wake up in the dark every day, but it was, when it was really bad, it was be thankful for anything, whatever you can think of, even if it's the same things that you wrote down yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And but I like this getting to more and more specific things could be. I can see that being an incredible program, incredibly powerful. Because gratitude helps get
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
outside of yourself. It's when we're trapped
Mm-hmm.
inside that things like depression and anxiety and paranoia get to you. And but if you can step outside of yourself, then things start to look better, but and
Mm-hmm.
gratitude can be a powerful tool to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, i
Now,
may i may have to i
recognizing,
may have to try your program and try to get to more and more
uh-huh,
specific things.
yes, yes. Recognizing that we're not the voice in our head is very important. That the essence of who you are is able to recognize the thoughts that you have about yourself in your life. That the essence of who you are can recognize when a thought is positive or negative. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Eckhart Tolle's work, but his awakening, it's the same thing with Michael Singer as well, is that what he calls the roommate in your head. And it's your brain as an organ that is just like keeping your whole body alive, but it never shuts off. Like it's constant chatter, 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 chatter in your head all the time. And that chatter, like, and you recognize that when you're trying to pray or when you're trying to meditate, when you're just trying to like settle the mind, that all of a sudden it'll drift off and start thinking about something. And then you have to keep calling it back, calling it back. The essence of who you are is calling it back. So your mind is, 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are the same as yesterday. So we're just recycling the same thoughts. And 80% of those thoughts are negative. So it's very easy for us to get caught in a very negative loop and continuing to see life in the very same way all the time. Now, the essence of who you are, not the roommate that's chattering, but the you that's able to see the thoughts, that you has huge power. That you is also the one that recognizes when you're feeling certain things throughout the day. So when you're feeling sad, well, how do you know that? It's the essence of who you are is recognizing that you're feeling sad, and you can feel the emotions in your body. So that part of you is the one that once you recognize that, it gives you huge control over your life. And that's the part that can motivate you to, even when you are feeling sad or even when you're not feeling like you want to get up and do, can really be the motivator behind changing your life. And I'm just saying this, Bill, because you mentioned about the depression, because people say, I am depressed, but you are not your depression. Your feelings are doing one thing, but it's to recognize that you're not your emotions even, and that it's through action and through changing your thoughts that you can change your emotional state. And so that is, like, I would say the huge beginning point is to recognize that you're not the roommate that chatters on and on and on about, why your life sucks or why you're upset and why that person treated you badly and why things aren't working out. Like, it's on and on and on. So it's a lot of the spiritual work helps you to get in touch with the true essence, and then being able to take control of your thoughts and your emotions from there.
Don't we have to also look at, like, when you're talking about these the roommate in your head and depression, or even I battled suicidal ideation from some stuff that went on early on in childhood. Nobody really wants to talk about, well, why are we depressed? And if you look at people's lifestyles, they're, I'm vegan. I only eat plants. I don't put, dead carcasses in my body because that's not healthy. Nobody's exercising the way they should. Their thumbs are just glued to a device looking at all these things. And then we wonder why we're depressed or why we're not living our best lives. And a lot of this stuff is pretty basic. And it comes down to lifestyle of basically move your body, put plant-based nutrition in you. You're going to think well, you're going to feel great, and you're going to do better. It's not about, let me take a pill for this or I need something for that. It's, let's just get back to some basic lifestyle changes that can put positive voices in our head. Because and in the end, ours isn't, we're talking about God a little bit today too. I don't think God wants us walking around being depressed and suicidal and full of anxiety. He wants us to live fully. Well, if you're not living a healthy lifestyle, you're not going to think and feel well. That's just how it is. But people don't really want to talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For me personally, an aspect of the depression is a miswiring of certain gifts. Two in particular is rumination and hyperfocusing. And when the depression takes over, when it's dark, then I will ruminate on something terrible. I will focus on it and work through it over and over and just relive it over and over again. And I can get so hyper focused on something that I will ignore food and sleep and everything. But when I've got things working in the light, then it gives me superpowers. Like I'm going to school right now, and sometimes a problem comes up that if I didn't have this gift to be able to work and rework a problem and get hyper focused on it, then I wouldn't be able to get anything done. And the way it's working right now, because I'm on the light side, it's really, my writing has never been stronger, and which is funny because people often say that mental issues give you great creative juices, and they can when they're working right. But yeah, and so I have to work doubly hard to stay on the light side, and so that these gifts are not curses. But yeah, I'm trying to eat better. I still love all of God's tasty critters, but they are less and less of my diet today than they were a while back. You know.
How long have you been unfortunately battling and then successfully overcoming some of these things? Like, do you recall like what age this started to change for you?
This, from my recollection, started in like the early teens, late childhood kind of time frame, and originally presented as one of the worst tempers you might ever meet. I would get so angry I would black out, and whatever happened, it was like Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk. Maybe Bruce Banner has little snippets of memory of what the Hulk did, but not really. Like it was a completely different person. And then as I got older, it started to turn inwards, and turning into more the classical depression of kind of like ideations of self harm, and just the darkness that comes with it, with rumination and hyper focusing and all of those things. I started getting treated, and at the time I thought this was just the way people were because we didn't talk about that stuff. We didn't talk about mental health issues as such. People had them, but they were problems, and we didn't. Nobody just talked about it. So it was like, okay, this is how life is, and crap. That's terrible. But yeah, and then what was it? It was about, it's been about a dozen or so years now since I met. Well, maybe a little longer. 2011 was when I graduated. So wow, it's been more like 14, 15 years since I met Leah, my dear friend who passed away about 5 years ago from cancer. She helped me realize that this wasn't normal, and helped me get started on treatment. So I did. I met a couple therapists and found a great therapist. Got some medical help for it, and got on a track that helped me get out of that, along with a lot of self care and support structure, which, believe me, if you have nothing else, if you can get yourself a support structure, it is so great. Because when people, and then of course coming out coming out as someone who deals with mental health issues, to the podcasting community, changed everything. It's like beforehand, the voice, or we used to call it the committee, because sometimes the voice sounds a little different, and it's like almost like a different person. But the voice in your head, the roommate, and said, the roommate would say, you don't want to let anybody know this because they're not going to let it go. They're going to beat you down, and it's going to be terrible. But when I actually stopped listening to the voice, and just came out and said it, we had a show on mental health, and I got nothing but love in return. So I have a global community now that full of people who care, and so it's definitely, making it public is definitely a great, you got to talk about it, you got to bring it out and say, what, I'm dealing with this issue. And whether it's something like depression, or something much more complex like schizophrenia, or any of the myriad of mental health issues, coming clean and saying, hey, let's talk about this. this is something important to me in my life, then it shows you who really cares about you, and it's going to turn out to be more people than you think.
So, because I deal with, I mean, specifically, my studies are all around happiness, right? I have shows
Mhm.
around happiness. I write I write on happiness. I'm an international writer. I'm studying my PhD with my
So,
dissertation in happiness. And I've also done 2 TED Talks on happiness as well. And so brand is called The Steps to Happiness. So it's very much about giving people the practical steps they need to take action to pull themselves out of these states. So I feel like a lot there's focus on talking about mental health, but there isn't such a focus on how do you get out of it? Like how
right,
do you come out of mental illness and work towards achieving mental health? And it's I feel like there are structures and systems at play that actually want to keep people stuck and want to keep people sick, dependent, and dumb. So
yeah,
sick that the healthcare system is designed and focused on making people sick, I feel like, keeping people sick, that it just wants to give people a quick pill, as Todd was saying, here's a quick pill, a quick fix, instead of giving people the steps. So like during COVID, we heard very much about, the vaccine, but what about all of the healthy things that we needed to be doing? Where's the exercise? Where's the food? Where's the getting out in the sun to get vitamin D? Where were the minerals, the supplements, all of those other things? They don't talk about that, right? So there's the sick part. Then there's the dumb, because I work in the education system. I'm an educator this is my 27th year. And I work with students that have special needs. And that, spectrum is very large. And there just seems to be more and more issues that are coming out of that. And diet, definitely plays a part of it, as Todd was saying. But there isn't, again, it's always about the medication. And the system itself is like an over 100-year-old system that is just not functioning well. Kids are not getting any smarter going to school. And then there's the dependent, right? The government then wants to keep people on social assistance and taking tons and tons and tons of taxes in whatever way that they can devise to keep people dependent and working 9 to 5 jobs and not helping us to get ahead and all of these different things. And so I think it's important for us to focus on what are those steps that can better our lives in all aspects of our lives, instead of just lamenting on all of the stuff that's going wrong. And I find that social media is so focused on that, and the news is so focused on that, on just talking about all the problems instead of giving people the solution. And that's what we need to hear more about. What are those things that can help people to get out of depression, that can help people get out of their social assistance, to get people off of prescription drugs or recreational drugs or alcohol or all the other dependencies and addictions that are very prevalent. Food, a big one. Food's a very big one.
food's the one I have problems with, but yeah, I've been very blessed to have met the right people who weren't interested in keeping me sick, and their tools. Even the school has part of my tuition goes to mental health help and assistance when I need it, and so yeah, I've been very fortunate, but not everybody is in that same thing. They get the wrong, they get the wrong psych help, they get the wrong therapy help. They get pushed down and pushed
Mm-hmm.
around, and you're sick and you're going to stay that. I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
seen that, and it's terrible. We have a
Mm-hmm.
system, we have a healthcare system, whether it's physical health or mental health or some combination of the two. The people you're paying to make you well won't get paid if you're well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's incentivizing people to keep you sick,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only the very few who don't take that incentive and instead are trying to get you out. It's like trying to put themselves out of a job,
Mm-hmm.
and So yeah, so I'm very grateful for her, for the people I've come into contact with, both for my physical medicine needs and my mental health needs. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's terrible. But
And it takes action. It takes
mhm,
action because just sitting on your couch and watching Netflix all day, every day is not going to change your life. And
right.
it takes that commitment to take small but consistent steps
Mhm,
towards doing that. And and sometimes, unfortunately, it takes reaching those crossroad moments where now you're ill, now you've lost, your job or a partner, or you're in some kind of accident or something really bad, to bring people to their really low point, to say, I just can't sit to suffer any longer, to then all of a sudden decide to take action to change. And I don't think that it should take getting ourselves to that point when something really bad happens in order to step up. But unfortunately, that's often what happens. That is that huge incentive for people to now take action. But why are we suffering every day? Like, we didn't come here to live a miserable life and then die. We actually came here to be happy. And we see that innately in children. Children are born loving, at peace, and happy. It's the world, though, that then gets its claws into us and has us believing a whole host of other things about ourselves, about the world, about our capabilities, about what we can achieve, about what it means to be alive here on earth. It's tons of negativity that like permeates into us and pulls children away from the love, peace, and happiness that we inherently are. So it is always about, how do we get back to that state that we were as children? Because that is our original nature, is to be that. And so if you're not living from that place every day, then you know that you're out of alignment with the essence of who you are. And you have to think about, is my physical self out of alignment? Do I have different health things going on? Do I feel stressed? Do I feel overwhelmed? Do I have pains in my body? All of those things are not health. And so that part, then what can you do to bring yourself back into alignment with the love, peace, and happiness that you are? Same thing with your mental self. Are your thoughts loving to yourself and others? And if they're not, they're out of alignment. So what steps can you take to align your mental self? And same thing with your emotional self. If you're not feeling happy, at peace, and harmony, and all the good feeling emotions we have, you're not in alignment. So recognizing and tuning into the communication of all the aspects of yourself should give you, as I said, an indication of whether you're on path or whether you're off path. And we often aren't checking in with ourselves as much as we need to, and saying, okay, do I need to get up and have a stretch? Do I need to eat something? Do I need to have a break? Do I need to hang out with friends? Do I? And so that's the action component that I talked about, that it takes action. And science now has identified that doing the things that happy people do can help you to live a happier life. But again, it takes action. So doing the action produces happiness hormones in the body, like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, that immediately start to elevate your mood. That we don't need external chemicals like prescriptions when we have an internal pharmacy that is capable of producing these chemicals naturally. But it takes action. So if you're sitting on the couch and in your bed and lamenting about how bad your life is, yeah, it probably is, because you're not doing anything. You're not doing the things that like happy people do, and doing the things that make you happy, that's going to help your body to then create those neurochemicals, or to create the biochemicals and the hormones and the endorphins and all those other things that naturally help you to feel better about yourself.
reminds me of the saying, "Growth is uncomfortable."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And getting out of the bed when the world seems dark and hopeless, or if you're in pain because of arthritis or some other condition like that. You need to get up and move to make yourself feel better. And that's like the last thing you want to do. Growth comes when you're uncomfortable.
You have to force yourself. So there are times that I'm feeling kind of tired and whatever, but then like a social engagement has come up, and social connections is one of the biggest factor of our happiness. One of the longest running studies of 75 years proved that the quality of our relationships is actually the biggest factor in how happy and healthy we will be in our lives. And so sometimes you don't feel like going out, but know that this is something you need to do. And then you go and you end up like having a good time, because that is one of those elements. So knowing what those elements are, what are those things that happy people do? What are those things that we can do, not just in here, but through action, that's going to help us to feel happier and more at peace in our lives.
No, absolutely. Get my jaw working, get my jaw back in alignment. No, when I finally finished my undergrad, I took the 20-year course of action. It was in business administration and focusing on marketing and management. And really, I was focusing on management because I found out that I had gifts in leadership. And right out of school, one of my instructors asked me to work with him to develop a leadership program, and for a group that had hired him to do just that in the automotive industry. And so I did all this work on it, but still the voice the roommate overpowered me and said, "You need this guy to be able to do this. You can't do this on your own." And when he took another job that took him away from the project, I was like, okay, and I just set it down and walked away. And finally, I'm getting to the point where I know I can do this stuff. And even though I'd had all of this knowledge floating around in my head, it took me until this last December to start writing stuff down. And so I'm working on. I am taking action. I am working on my book in leadership. And when I do it, it's like when I think about doing it, I'm like, I don't really feel like doing it. But when I actually do it, it's exciting. And and there's definitely, so I can totally see how taking action on something that's been simmering on the back burner forever can be. So definitely I concur. But yeah.
I have something else I can share, but Todd, did you want to jump in there?
I think we've lost Todd's sound.
Audio.
Uh-oh. It switched back to your MacBook microphone. Switch it back to your Yeti.
Bill, do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you want. It's the Teresa show now.
So, no, I just wanted to piggyback on something that you said about leadership, and that positive psychology has identified 24 character strengths that we all have, but some are more pronounced within us than others. And knowing what those character strengths are, and whereby we use them often and we use them in new ways, can help us to feel happier and more successful in our life. And so leadership happens to be one of those character strengths. So knowing what those are and leaning on those. So often, even education tends to focus on people's weaknesses and trying to bring those weaknesses up, rather than focusing on people's strengths and using those to continue to boost people up. And so knowing what those strengths are for us and leaning on those as much as possible can help us to feel happier. And so I invite people also to go and check those out. So it's like Positive Psychology, 24 character strengths. You'll find it all over Google, but there's different like quizzes and tests that you can do. I can also share the link if you'd like. And they're like quick little assessments that can help you to figure out what those are. And like, for example, for me, some of those strengths are gratitude, forgiveness, hope, my love of learning, and spirituality are all strengths that I use often. And I didn't know that they were, I mean, I was just doing them, but I didn't know to say that, oh, practicing them often and doing them in new ways helps us to feel excited, engaged, and more authentic in our lives. And so it's important for us to know what those are so that we can also lean on those to be able to pull us out of like whatever funk we might be feeling and leading us again into the direction of feeling happier and more alive in our lives.
Yeah, you
So good on
mentioned
you.
forgiveness, and I'm a contributor on somebody else's podcast. It's a business focused one, and a couple weeks ago, I led the group in doing a show on forgiveness in the business place, and how that leads to resilience, and it's amazing how misunderstood forgiveness is by so many people, that it's a weakness, that it's like, I don't want to, it's like, I want to hate on this person, and all, and don't realize that the forgiveness is not for the other person. It's pretty likely that the other person has forgotten all about whatever wrong it is they did to you. The person who cut you off on the freeway, they're not thinking about you, but you're thinking about them, and you're giving them valuable real estate in your mind. And if you can forgive them, then it releases you. It frees up that real estate in your brain that is currently being occupied by somebody you don't like. And if you can forgive them, then it's like lifting a weight off of your own shoulders. Because anger is drinking a poison and hoping it kills your enemy.
Yeah,
And
I was just going to share that quote. Yeah.
And
that's such a good one.
And then if you can bring up that forgiveness, then it puts you into a position to be more agile in your life, to be able to handle, the bad things that will eventually come your way, because this is the world and things happen. And makes you more resilient and able to adapt to the crises as they come. And so it was a pretty good show too. You can find it. You can find the link to it on my LinkedIn if you search for Bill Hatch. So
very cool. Todd, how are you doing now?
I can't switch phones back to the. Let's see. Refresh your screen and log back in. We'll still be here. If you refresh the browser, then it'll let you log back in. Need to charge computer and can't charge computer with Okay. So no more Todd. But we'll put his links in the description, and I'll let me see here. Let me go to the description he wrote, and I will tell you about Todd Crandell. Todd Crandell is a sober suicide survivor who has beaten the odds to become the original sober triathlete, service mark, competing in 113 Ironman competitions around the world. He has dedicated his life to helping those in recovery. Crandell is a 5-time author, and his mission is to change how people approach the subject of mental health. So we'd already talked about that, kind of. And I'll put racingforrecovery.org, his link in the description, so you can check out what he does. And hopefully we'll get to have him on a future show where he remembers to charge up his device before coming online. No, I tease. That wasn't very fair. So, but yeah, no, this has been great.
But may I ask you a question after what you shared about forgiveness? So, in your opinion, how does forgiveness and like resilience go hand in hand when you said that it's important for us to embrace forgiveness? And how do you feel like it lends itself to help us to be more resilient?
Unforgiveness is it weakens you, because you're putting all this effort into the hatred and anger. And so you can't put your energy into these other things. Our energy, our life energy, if you will, is not an unlimited resource. We don't have unlimited time. We don't have unlimited strength. We don't have nothing is that we have is really unlimited. And if we're putting all this energy into unforgiveness, then it weakens us in other areas. It becomes like, have you ever read The Art of War? In it, Sun Tzu taught. It's really a fascinating work and can give you insights into so much of life. It's not just about battle, but it's about battling life. And there are plenty of modern adaptations of it. But one of the things that Sun Tzu talks about is you overtake an enemy's fortress by getting them to focus in their defenses in the wrong area, and because that weakens another area. And so your enemies, those who aren't working for you, who are working against you, trying to take advantage of you, can then go to this area you're not focused on and get whatever it is they want, while you're over here focused on somebody who slighted you or whatever. And so you can't resist these other forces that are coming on. But if you can let go of that, if you can let go of that unforgiveness, if you can come to forgive, then you can put your energy towards the right areas. You can put it toward becoming happier. You can put it toward defending yourself against people who want to take advantage of you. You can put it toward the project you have in the back of your head that could benefit all of humanity. Instead of not forgiving the former mother-in-law or your ex or the guy who cut you off on the freeway, whatever it might be. I've had that in my life. I've had unforgiveness, and it stopped me from doing anything productive. It was survival mode. And and once I was able to let go of that and forgive, then I was able to adapt and change with the circumstances to be able to effectively do what I needed to do more than just survive. And so that's really how forgiveness brings you to resilience, is by freeing up resources.
And I think for the forgiveness of self is really important, right? That for me, when I think of resilience, I think of, you've been knocked down, and how do you get back up again? How do you get back on that horse? That oftentimes we're knocked down and people want to stay in there in the misery, in the muck, and, and it could be for a really long time, instead of saying, okay, I've been knocked down. What did I learn from this experience? Right? That it's always about the learning. It isn't about the fact that you were knocked down, because everybody gets knocked down. There isn't a single person that can say that they've never ever had something that didn't go their way. There's always some kind of situation that we've been knocked down, but the important is that we stand back up again. And when we forgive ourselves in that process of whatever part we may have played in that situation, I believe that can also help us to pull ourselves out, to say, okay, for whatever part you may have played in the situation of why you got knocked down. Maybe you didn't study enough. Maybe you didn't practice enough. Maybe you were too trusting of someone that you didn't know well enough. So there's always such great lessons that come out of those times when things didn't work out for us. But that's really the part that we're supposed to be focusing on. And so I think definitely forgiveness for both sides, forgiving others. And I think it's also important to say that when we forgive others, we're not condoning what it is that they did, right? Because some people feel that if they forgive, they're actually saying that, oh, it's okay that they did that to me. No, it's actually not okay. That if the person wasn't acting out of love and what they did was not loving in whatever way that is, then it's not okay. So you're not condoning whatever action it is that happened or situation that happened, but you're saying that I'm willing to move past this and I'm going to forgive them in the situation. And then be grateful if you can get to that place to actually say, okay, I'm grateful for the lesson that came out of that situation, even though it was hard, even though it was hurtful, but I was able to learn this from it that I can now apply going forward so that, I can move again in the direction of where I want to go. And so I think that that's a really interesting discussion of how how forgiveness ties into resilience.
No, absolutely. And I think key to that is looking at failures as learning opportunities. It's not a failure, beat yourself up, sit there in the mud and the muck and mire and think about what you did. It needs to be about, what did I learn what did we learn today? Don't touch the stove. It's hot. Don't drive defensively. I don't know why I'm stuck on driving today, but drive defensively. But yeah, having failures be learning opportunities, because even if there was a person who had never failed at something and never learned what it meant to fall off the horse, I don't know that I'd want to have anything to do with them, because they've never learned anything. They've got a limited set of skills. And, they need to fail at something and learn and become better. And
we get stronger. We get stronger through that, right?
Yeah.
And not so, right now we're in this stage of trying to shield children from pain.
Right.
So, everything's trauma. Even telling a little kid no, that can be traumatic. But the world is full of no's. There's lots of things that we can't do that it's a no. And so it's unrealistic to bring up children in this environment to think that, oh no, God forbid that they should feel sad that their team didn't win when they played their sport. And that now there's no score, there's no goals, everybody gets a ribbon, everybody wins a trophy, everyone is like, no, that's not life. And so now we're like pussyfooting around situations and actually not giving children the opportunity to be resilient. That when we get knocked down, that life is going to do that for us. And that you need to know how to pick yourself back up. Recognizing that roommate that wants to, are we allowed to swear on this show?
I don't censor anybody.
That wants to talk shit in your head that says you're such a loser. Look at how you can't make things work out. Look at how you didn't say this, or look at that's what that roommate wants to say. It wants to talk smack about you in here, on and on and on. And those are the words that keep you stuck. Those are the words that keep you limited. And I know, because this voice was not my greatest cheerleader. This voice was my worst enemy, that it said to me all the time, Teresa, you're not pretty enough. Teresa, you're not skinny enough. Teresa, you're not athletic enough. Teresa, you're not smart enough. Teresa, you're not enough of a lot of different things. It was constant. And it was only until I woke up to this voice and was like, wait, these are all lies. All you're doing is spewing lies, because the truth of who I am is love, peace, and happiness. I am made in the likeness of my Creator. So I can't be any of these negative things that this voice wants to say. And it's often the egoic voice that is saying all of those things. And so if this inner voice is not uplifting, is not empowering, is not encouraging, is not loving, then that voice is not the truth of who you are, because the truth would be saying, you're amazing. You've got this. You're incredible. You're invincible. You are capable of everything that you desire. That you're awesome. You're amazing. You are that's what that voice needs to be saying. And so I check myself every day because the old voice wants to pull in the old tapes that was playing in my mind on repeat, that, as I said, was sabotaging, that was limiting, that was belittling, that was degrading, all of those things. That's what that voice was. And that was the voice that I probably adopted through the living of my life from other well-meaning people, right? Parents, friends, parents that said, oh, Teresa, you're not skinny enough. You need to eat less food. You need to look like this. And then other teachers said things to me, right, that made me feel like I wasn't smart enough, or other classmates that I wasn't smart. I know all of the different why I had this voice that was saying those things to me. So they say that the external or outside voice of an adult becomes the internal or inside voice of a child. So adults has to be very careful about what they say to children, because it becomes the repeat voice on the inside, the old tapes that are playing, the negative inner voice, that roommate that never shuts up and often spews negative things. As I said, 80% of it negative. So it's important that we recognize that voice and say, if it's not in alignment with you being amazing, you being incredible, you being magnificent, you being special and unique, and all of the amazing words that we could say to ourselves, if it's not saying any of that, it's all lies.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. If the voice isn't telling you to get up, then yeah, it's the wrong voice. You need to change the channel.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Change the channel, change the frequency that you're on. Absolutely. And it is possible. We just have to awaken to that voice first. And that is, I think, a big missing piece in the mental illness part, is that people aren't able to recognize that this voice of negativity is not the truth of that which they are, and that they can actually get it to stop. And there are different strategies that you can use to detach yourself from the voice that's constantly speaking, which is your brain. And your brain is all the time telling you to turn left at the light, telling you how to cook your egg, how to get dressed, how to brush your teeth, how to mow the lawn. It has to do all those things. But what it doesn't have to do is spew negativity and talk smack and push you down and keep you limited and sabotaging you and criticizing you. That it doesn't need to do. So that's what we need to wake up to and say, no, I'm not going to have that. And this is what I'm going to do instead. So I don't know, you're probably familiar with Mel Robbins. She has a book called the high five habit, which is where you, when you see yourself in the mirror, you give yourself a high five. And this gesture is a way of saying to yourself, you've got this. You're awesome. Just as you would give a high five to someone else, you are giving it to yourself and saying, you've got this today. You can do this today. You can do life today. You can do, whatever it is that you might have, have a meeting, you have this podcast to do, whatever it is, you can do this today, and you can show up the way that you know that you can, which is in that great and magnificent way, instead of all of that self-doubt and worry that might creep in. So I love that habit. Give yourself a high five.
Give yourself a high five. Yeah. And, all sorts of little things that you can do that aren't much, but they add up really quickly. They snowball. Doing the high five, writing out your gratitude list, getting up and walking around your house. Even if it looks stupid, you walking around the outside of your house. Go out the front door. Just take one lap around your house. It's not much, and get started. And
I love that point. Being out in nature is another big component to happiness. Yeah. That it's amazing how you get outside, as you said, just even one lap around the house. But there's something about being outside. It's Mother Nature infusing us with so much positive energy when we go outside. Yeah. So even if you're just sitting outside, you still reap the benefits. So absolutely, that's another strategy that we can do to feel happier.
It's it's all about the slight advantage. You know, if you improve 1% every day, it's not much. But after a year, the math actually works out to more than 400% improvement. It's not 365% improvement. So it's like 400 and something percent. I did the math once, and I'm not going to do it again. That's my sister's job. She's the mathematician of the family. But yeah, if you can take one step today and 2 steps tomorrow and 3 the next day and so on and so forth, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And you know, my old favorite of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's you know, just the little tiny bit, and that can make all the difference.
Yes, yes, it does. It compounds itself.
Yes.
Saying the positive things to ourselves, right? That's positive affirmations. And I have
Yeah.
sticky notes like here at my desk. I have them like in strategic places that when I'm feeling that negative voice again, trying to say something to me, I'm like, and then I read my affirmation. My affirmation says, I am successful at everything I do. So I'm not going to let it, oh, it's not going to work out. And no, it probably, no, I'm not having that. I'm having everything always works out for me. And I am successful at everything I do. And I am achieving my dreams. That's what I'm having. I'm not having any naysaying thoughts in here that tells me that, no, it's not going to work out. Not having that. So positive affirmations are also great that you can put them on your mirror, right in the washroom. Every time you go to the washroom, you read that. Whatever it is that you need to say to yourself, you know what the negative voice is saying. So now you're going to replace that negative voice with a positive one, and it takes repetition. You can't just say it today and not tomorrow. No, it's every day, over and over and over and over. And if you think about how many times you think about your problems or how many times you're stuck in like, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm not smart, I'm a loser. Those thoughts are prevalent. And so we need the positive ones to become the default, the prevalent ones, the ones that our mind automatically goes to. And we know that's possible because of the science of neuroplasticity, that we know that we have the ability to change our mind. So that's saying you can't teach old dogs new tricks. That's a lie. We can absolutely, and up to like the day that we die, we can do this. But it takes that repetition, that just like those negative thoughts in the brain look like very deep, like rivers. But when you practice new ones, which maybe initially would be like tributaries, that when you reinforce them and you continue to ruminate on the positive ones, not on the negative stuff, on the positive ones, over and over and over, and you keep practicing, those eventually become deep like rivers. And then the other ones actually fade away. So your mind just automatically defaults to the new ones, the new programming that you've set in your mind, that our mind is like a computer. And that by the time we are 35 years old, that computer program is so set that it's running our life on autopilot. And it's only until we start to create these new neural pathways with the new belief systems that we want, that are loving and are serving us and uplifting us and empowering us, that's absolutely possible. But it takes that rumination is not a negative thing, as you said,
No.
that when you guide it and you steer it in a positive direction, actually can work to your benefit. And so we can do that by creating these new belief systems about ourselves that, as I said, helps us to live the life we actually want to live.
Yeah, you're I mean, it's so right. I mean, teaching an old dog new tricks, it may be more difficult to teach the old dog the new trick. It may take a little more time and energy, but the old dog can still learn the new trick. You just gotta keep
Repetition.
chipping away at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Chipping away.
Yeah. Well,
1% a day.
yep, 1% today. That's all you have to do. Well, I always want to leave people wanting more. and we've been going at this for a while. There's going to be some good clips out of this too, and so I'd like to thank you for being on the show, and Todd too, um, wherever he is, and I really do hope I get him on the show. I wanted to hear more about running all those Ironmans. Before my knees went shot, I used to want to do one of those, but maybe, but I'll be walking, not running. So,
Yeah, me too.
but yeah, and let's see. Before we go, do you have any final words for the nice people?
Well, I would love to say that. I mean, I think we've talked about so many wonderful things on this
I know.
episode, but I think what's important for people to recognize is that doing the things that happy people do can help us to feel happier. And what that is really recognizing what are those happy things for you. And I call it building your happiness toolkit. And your happiness toolkit should have different things in there that you know help you to tap into your happiness. So for me, the things that I have in my toolkit are meditation, writing, listening to uplifting songs and podcasts, hanging out with encouraging family and friends, reading motivational books, being out in nature, exercising. So when I start to feel like the world is pulling me away, I immediately go into my happiness toolkit and say, okay, what can I lean on today? What songs can I listen to? What books do I need to dive into that help to remind me about the truth of who I am? Is it for some people cooking and drawing, playing with their pets, playing with their kids, writing poetry? And you want to try to choose healthy things, right? Not things that can potentially be like addictions, right? Like
Don't,
shopping or eating or
yeah, don't get
gambling or
out the tub of
those
ice
things.
cream.
Yeah, no. We want to try to think of like what are those positive things that are healthy for us as
Mhm.
well, but are self-loving. And so it's really about when you're doing different things, checking in and saying, how happy do I feel when I do this? And if you know that you're feeling more energized and excited when you're doing it, then that's definitely something you should add to your toolkit. So think about who are those people that you hang out with or that you talk to, that when you leave the conversation, you feel that much better about yourself and your life, that you've been laughing and you feel lighthearted, and there's this really beautiful energy that is there between you, but also within you that you take into the rest of your day. When we're engaged in all these different things, even our work, right? To think, well, what part of my work is really exciting? What are those things that I really like about my work, and focusing on those things, and then trying to integrate more and scheduling in, because that's the other component that I get, that people are like, well, I don't have time. Everyone has the same time. We all have 24 hours a day. But if you're working 60 to 80 hours a week and you get to the end of the week and you're like, my life sucks. Yeah, it probably does, because you left yourself no time to tap in to your happiness and use your happiness toolkit. So you do need to and it's 20 minutes. Like when I'm feeling a little low, it's like a 20-minute walk outside. It's a couple songs on my phone. It doesn't require you to take a half day off of work. It's like quick little, like if cooking's your thing, then really be present and enjoy when you're making your lunch or your dinner, or playing with your kids. Be present when you're playing with your kids and not focusing on your phone or distracted by TV and thinking about other things. Be totally present in the moment, because that's where our happiness is found. So I would love to leave people with the idea of creating that happiness toolkit and making time to connect with your happiness by engaging with those things that are in your toolkit. And that's what can help us to live happier lives.
Yep. Wow. Such good stuff. I can tell why you've done two TEDx talks. But
I'm so passionate about this, Bill. If anything,
yes,
if you is how passionate I am about helping people to because at the core of everything we do, we just want to be happy. That I think is like the foundation of everything that we do. We just want to be happy. And so if that's the truth, doing these different things can help us to achieve that.
Absolutely. Well, check out Teresa at teresagreco.ca, and the link's in the description. And also check out wait a minute, what was Todd's link? Racingforrecovery.org. That will be in the description as well. So again, I thank you for coming on and sharing with the audience. Let's see, everybody. Remember to be safe out there. Wash your hands and stay tuned for the ending credits. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank our producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I'd especially like to thank our associate producer, Paul Hernandez III, for his contribution to the shows this month. Follow his financial channel, HDZ Financial, on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to stay on top of the latest financial news and improve your financial literacy. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd also like to thank my special guests, Teresa Greco and Todd Crandell. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Be sure to tune in next time when my special guest will be Missy Mestel, a transformative nonprofit consultant who uplevels how organizations think about their impact and solve problems. And Kelda Music Diva, a returning guest who is a hip-hop artist, actress, talk show host, and fashion designer who is interested in mental health, fitness, and education. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. That is the suicide and crisis lifeline here in the United States.